from your parents?
Okay, now this is going to be another poor girl story. Not much. I except for my mom and dad and my grandpa were very hard workers. They were very industrious and responsible. So that was something that really imprinted. I imprinted that lesson, and they all always. We didn't have much, but they always did a good job. At least when until you factor in tithing and stuff like that, there wasn't any of that. That was just, but they were pretty responsible. My stepdad, when he came in the picture, also was responsible. He had a really good job at the pole yard down in Rochester, and so that was good. And then by osmosis, I guess, nobody taught us anything, but we learned that working hard paid off, and all of us, every one of us were hard workers and industrious and whatever. So maybe Denise was more spoiled, because again, by the time Denise, the youngest sister, came around, there was they were more affluent. So she didn't have the same. Janice and I had to work to get what we wanted, didn't get that. That's a valuable lesson. So anyway, she was spoiled. She was an adorable little girl, though. All of us just adored her. But so that we learned responsibility just by osmosis.
Well, that's a pretty good lesson.
Yeah, it really was a good lesson. On my dad, everybody was a hard worker. They worked on the weekends. They always went to the tavern on Saturday night, and often they do some kind of I don't know what it was, activities. They'd go to shuffleboard and things like that. My mother and father never ever came to anything except my high school graduation, but anything in school, nobody ever. And my mother thought I was too full of myself, so she withheld any kind of praise. And so that was a kind of a bad thing for me, because I'm a little praise hungry. So I have a kind of okay, I'm doing all this and I want to be noticed and recognized like most oldest children do. It's just the way it is, and it's not a terrible thing, because that usually makes you guys and me more industrious and more inclined to think not for other people but for yourself. But it is true that there's a little bit of spoiling going on.
Okay, valuable lessons from my parents. My mother was a people person. She's an outgoing person. She was adventurous.
Yep.
Just stop and think about, at 21 years old, leaving Finland on a boat for the United States.
Right.
Can't even speak the language. And a few contacts and that sort of thing. So she always loved people, and she was always affirmative on anything we wanted to do as kids. If we wanted to go someplace, do something, who would suggest a movie? It was my mom would suggest, let's go see a movie. I wanted to see, some of the early movies, Donald O'Connor or somebody in the early movies. And so we would go to a movie. Dad would go along and we'd go. She ended up, she had friends all over the world. She had
Yep.
friends. And so she ended up being the PTA president. We took in a foster daughter when Glenna was in high school, just coming into high school, and Mom formed a Girl Scout troop and got a bunch of girls, and they had a Girl Scout troop in Rochester.
Yep.
Just for something to do. She was always pushing for one thing or another. Dad was kind of a plodder. He just he worked hard all day long, every day. He would take naps on Sunday afternoon, and most people would take a nap in bed. He would lay on the wool carpet in the dining room and get a pillow off the thing and go to sleep on the floor. And that was his nap in the afternoon. But he would get up every morning at 4:30 and he'd go to bed at 10. And so that was his lifestyle. Milk cows morning and night. But he gave me a tremendous amount of freedom. He made me feel valuable. And that is a rare treasure. I didn't know it at the time, but that's probably why I think so highly of him, because he appreciated me and he gave me things to do that made me feel a part of the family and a part of something bigger than myself. And so that was probably the biggest thing that I got from him. From her, it was stretching my limits, making me do things that I wouldn't normally do. She was an outgoing type of a person, and
Yep.
Dad was just, try it. You know, he never had a problem that he couldn't solve. If he had to invent something, he did to solve the problem. But that's just kind of the way he was all through life. And when before he took over the farm, before his parents died, he worked for the State Highway Department, and he was a bridge builder. And so he built most of the bridges around the Olympic Peninsula on all the rivers and whatnot. When they built the road going around the loop on the Olympic Peninsula, he worked on most of those bridges.
Yeah.
And so then when his parents died, he took over the farm, and then Mom was there taking care of my grandmother when she had cancer. And so then when my grandmother died and then my grandfather died, then she was left at home and Dad was back home and all the rest of the family left. So there they were in a house together. So they got married.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about as romantic as Dad is, I think. Mom obviously had different ideas, but she was a good wife to him, and they got along just fine, lived for a long time together, 50-some years together. So
50
anyway,
some? 50 some?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and it was interesting, Dad. I remember when Winter was born, and I was over there. I think it's one of the times we got a picture of 4 generations.
Oh, yeah.
And Dad, he says, I can't believe it. I got married so old, I didn't think I'd ever see grandchildren. And here I've got great-grandchildren.
Yeah.
And so he was really impressed with that. But then he lived to be 94. So I guess in order to do that, you got to live a long time.
Right.
But yeah, we never had any fights in our family amongst any of the 4 kids. No fights. I think I said this once, the only time I ever hit Don is when he dropped a water balloon on me when I was practicing my trombone on the front porch, and he had the upstairs bedroom. So I ran upstairs and got him. And then I felt bad about it. But anyway, no, we never had any problems, any squabbles. Still the best of friends.
And he was smaller than you. That's
Yeah.
how you got him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.